Hey everybody, how's it going? This is the Scrapper Tap Podcast. Today I'm going to do a quick recap over UFC Fight Night Overeem versus Harris. So I did better than the Wednesday night cards. I went 7 for 11, not too bad, a good little bounce back. That all in all, it was a good night of fight, especially once we got to the main card. It was a nice solid night. There's a couple things that didn't go my way, and I'm not going to call anything a robbery because there's a lot of close fights that night, but there was a few, and a few that I definitely was leaning the other way, and I think a lot of other people were too. So I'm going to jump onto those first. And the first one that really sticks out, man, is Angela Hill versus Claudia Gedaliah. So, that was a good fight, man. Don't get me wrong. Claudia came out and she definitely won that first round, and I was like, oh, okay, Hill's in some trouble. And then the second round, Hill basically took over, man. She stunned her and dropped her, continued that pace, and then going into the third, she did the same thing. I really thought she picked her apart and outstruck her in the second and third, and she was not happy when they announced that winner. Not only did she take to Twitter, a couple other people did, a couple other fighters. And, I saw Joe Rogan, Brendan Schaub, and a few other fighters. They went with Hill. And, it is what it is. That kind of stuff's going to happen. And I think it happened a few times that night. We had Edson Barboza versus Danny Ige. And that was another close one. But, man, I think Barboza did what he had to do to get that win. I know Dan Ige, I think the second round, he had a good second round. But other than that, I think it was all Barboza. You can tell even by the damage on the face after. I know that's only part of it. But, man, I really think Barboza got ripped. And I believe Dana White told him after the fight that he won that one. So, we've seen what happens when a fighter loses a fighter loses a fight that he probably should have won. We've seen how Dana, can treat it as if he did win. Jose Aldo lost a really close one, which, a lot of people, including me, think Jose Aldo won that fight, and he was granted a title shot the next time, man. So, hopefully Barboza, now that he moved down to 145, that doesn't really hold him back, and I hope he gets another good opponent because I think he beat Dan Ige, and Ige is not a slouch, man. He's a good fighter. So Barboza to come in there I believe the first time fighting at 145, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. And then there's another close one that actually went my way, which honestly could have went either way. And that was Marlon Vera versus Song Yadong. Song Yadong got the close, I believe it was a split decision. And, I wouldn't be surprised if they went with Vera. It actually got me out of my feet when they said Song Yadong because I was already leaning towards Vera, thinking Song Yadong let him have it in the third, And, I was wrong. So, I think the judges were inconsistent the whole night. So I'm not going to say that really affected my picks, even though I think I should have went 9 for 11. At the same time, if Song would have lost, it would have went back down. It would have went to 8 and 11. So it is, it is what it is. I went 7 for 11 with some really close fights. So now I'm going to talk about the main event, man. It was a good fight. It was, while it lasted, it was a good fight. In my breakdown on my predictions, I said my head is telling me Overeem and my heart's telling me Walt Harris, and I rocked with my heart and I went with Walt Harris, and man, he almost had it in the first. He stunned and knocked down Overeem, got on top, landed a couple good shots, but he couldn't rain down enough to stop it or really land that next one on the chin to put Overeem out. But he came damn close, and I was rooting for him, but Overeem took over and finished it in the second. And, I saw that as a big possibility, and, he did what he had to do to get the win. So shout out to Overeem. It was a fun fight, and, I hope to see Walt Harris come back in in better shape. It did look like he got a little gassed. But yeah, man, it was a pretty good main event. So I'm going to go through the card really quick and say just say the ones I was correct and the ones I was wrong on. And we're going to fire through this real quick before we talk about a big fight announcement that they just made today. So we had Fiera versus Mays. I was correct. Fiera got the win. I took Courtney Casey over Barella, and Courtney Casey got the win. And I started off hot, man. I went 3 for 3 because next I took Nate Landwehr over Darren Elkins, which a lot of people took Elkins because, you know, he's the tough veteran. You know, he's been in the game for a minute and he's a tough fighter, man. And a lot of people lean towards Elkins, but I saw Nate Landwehr's first fight, and even though he got knocked out, he looked pretty good up into that knockout. He throws some bombs, man. He was a fun one to watch. You got to watch out for Nate Landwehr. So I started off really hot. I actually started off really good. I went 5 for 5. I started off 5 for 5 because the next one, the Mike Davis fight, did not go down. Mike Davis, after weigh-ins, I think he had some complications. I'm not too sure exactly what happened, but he had to pull out from the fight. So Giga Chikadze had to take on another opponent last second, and you know, I couldn't have done it obviously on the video, but I chose Giga, and he got that win pretty easy and dominant. Then we had Anthony Hernandez versus Kevin Holland. I went with Kevin Holland, and he got that done with a knockout. So like I said, I started off 5 for 5. It was looking 5 for 5, and it was looking great until we got to Matt Brown versus Miguel Baeza. I went with Matt Brown, but man, I knew in the back of my head Baeza definitely can get it done, and he did, man. I believe he knocked out Matt Brown pretty early. I think it was the second round. And then we're on to the main card. So the main card, man, started getting good. Song Yadong versus Marlon Vera. That was a good one. I took Song Yadong. He got the win for me. Jocko versus Anders. Didn't quite live up, you know, to the expectations that I was thinking, man. I thought it was going to be some fireworks and a knockout victory for somebody, most likely Jocko. But Jocko did enough, and he got it done. Anders was trying to, you know, push him against the cage basically the whole time, but Jocko got the win. And then we had Barboza versus Ige. Ige won that one, so I was wrong. Then we had Angela Hill versus Claudia Gedaliah. I took Hill. Claudia got that win. And then the main event, Alistair Overeem versus Walters. Overeem got it done, man. But all in all, it was a good night of fights. Didn't do too bad. Had a couple good cards that I made for DraftKings. I think I had a perfect card except for Barboza. So I won a little bit of money. Nothing big. It was fun, man. It was a fun night of fights. So I look forward to the next one, which they just booked. We thought we were waiting for 2 off. We thought we were gonna have 2 off weeks, and June 6th was gonna be the next fight. But they just booked the May 30th. We got Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns, and that one's gonna be a banger, man. I'm gonna go back, do my homework, watch some of their past fights, and you know, go with who. We'll see who I'm going to go with, man. Right now it's up in the air, but I kind of know who I'm leaning to, but I'm going to save that for next week when I make my picks. But man, that's going to be a good one. They had some Twitter beef, some talking going back and forth, and you know, Dana ended up booking it. So I think the fight fans are really happy about that one. And if you're not a casual, you know who these fighters are, man, and you know what this is going to bring. And I'm ready for it, man. I'm stoked. And I can't wait for them to drop the whole card, because as of right now, they have not. But that's going to be a good one. And the following week, June 6th, that's when we have the title fight. Amanda Nunes. So that versus Spencer. And that one's going to be a good one as well, you know. So we got some fights lined up. Next week, I'm going to have my picks, but sometime now, probably before next Wednesday, you know, so about in a week or so, maybe a little less, I'm going to drop another video with a buddy of mine. He came up with a good idea, hit me up, and we're going to go over the rankings for certain divisions. And yeah, that one's going to be a fun one, some good content, and y'all see y'all then. Appreciate y'all checking out the recap. And this is the Scrapper Tap podcast. Appreciate y'all.